30 years ago, Jurassic Park roared its way into movie theaters. The film's impressive special effects and incredible premise have wowed audiences for decades, cementing it as a true classic. It took several years to craft the perfect blockbuster. It all began with the script writing process, adapting Michael Crichton's science fiction story into an adventure for the big screen. As scripts were written, the production's art department immediately began illustrating various sequences and sets. These vital pieces of concept art, blueprints, and storyboards helped visually shape the film and its large budget. One vital member of this team was Caroline Quinn, the film's art department coordinator. While her career would later evolve as a set designer on projects like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Halloween Kills, and Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon, Jurassic Park was where everything began. Join us now as we discuss her role as an art department coordinator and the adventure she went on to help bring Jurassic Park to life.
So it is now, believe it or not, the 30th anniversary of Jurassic Park, which is mind-blowing, right? Especially for you, because you worked on it.
It's just it doesn't compute. That doesn't compute. I mean, it seems like a long time ago for sure, but oh my God, yeah, that's a long time, 3 decades. So here we are.
Yeah,
still talking about it.
Like, it just won't go away, damn it. Just won't go away. This damn movie that everyone loves so much.
When I first started working on it, and I was talking to Rick Carter, it was really early days. I was hired by Rick, bless his heart, who's a very he's kind of on another channel than the rest of us. And so I came on almost out of art school with no qualifications to work on a movie, but he liked my portfolio of fine art that I produced at school. And I was trying to get, I wanted to be in the business. And so I was brought on really early, just by chance, by lucky timing, knowing somebody. And I remember Rick, we were walking around one day and he said, this is going to be a really historical movie, just so you know. And I'm like, okay, if you say so. So yeah, here we are. He was right. And that was really early on. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating that Rick already knew that it was going to be a big deal. He must have seen perhaps some of the ILM tests or something.
Yeah, I mean, it was so early. I came on and I had very little knowledge about the business. I had no business being there, but I was super lucky to be there. And I still suffer from imposter syndrome because of that. Because I was like, well, what am I doing here? And I also had no idea what my place was. So I was a bit of a brat. There was Rick Carter, Jim Teagarden was the art director. And when I came on, there was just one illustrator, Tom Cranham. And I think they'd already been working on it for a few months. And there was Marty Klein was another illustrator who'd done some work. And I think one more super famous guy, not David Lowery, but somebody else, some really amazing illustrator. And so they had all these concept drawings and they'd been talking to ILM and they'd been talking to Stan Winston. And so they had kind of an idea where they were going, but they had no idea where they were going because it was, creating these computer graphics as they were going. And Stan Winston was kind of, doing his thing. And they'd already gone through a couple of, scripts, I think. And so basically it was just me, Rick, and Tom for I don't know how many months. And then people started coming in and doing drawings, set designers and more, maybe one more art director. And I think we were in the back bungalows, which have probably all gone, well, definitely all gone now, behind Amblin. There were some bungalows there, some temporary trailers. I had no idea. I was in this little world next to Amblin, and I'd been on it for a few months. And as I said, I was a real brat, and I didn't know my place, and I was upset because I didn't understand my job. I really didn't know what I was doing, and I was upset that I wasn't doing more interesting things. So I think, and I think I was crying. I was telling Rick that I was really having. I had a bit of a tantrum with Rick, and Rick has had small children at the time, so he was probably used to it. Bless him. And so, but I was also at that time using spray 77, and gluing all these storyboards and illustrations onto illustration board for a presentation. So I had the mask on, and that's probably why I was upset, because I was having to do this job and I was just not happy. So I had this mask on, and I was been spraying, and I had goggles on just because it was all this stuff was billowing up, and I had this tantrum. And then Steven Spielberg comes into the art department to have a quick meeting with Rick, and I hadn't met him at that point. And Rick says, "Oh, here, Caroline, come meet Steven." And I went, "Hi, nice to meet you." And I had all these red eyes because I'd been crying. He says, "Oh, you all right?" And I said, "Oh, it's okay. I've been wearing all these masks and goggles because I've been spraying." So I was able to sort of I passed it off. Like the swollen eyes weren't caused by the glue. It was because I was being a brat.
Oh, no.
I know.
Well, at least it didn't come off that way to Steven. There you go. So that's fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
See, he just thought you were a hard worker is all.
That's right. Great. That's right. Well, I was. After a few months, they announced that it was shutting down. ILM needed some time. So they shut down, and then we all went to work on Death Becomes Her. So then my first real experience of a full movie was Death Becomes Her, also at Universal. We just moved offices. And then after that finished, we all started coming back to Amblin to continue Jurassic. Death Becomes Her was sandwiched in between. So
yeah, it's interesting that ended up happening. Like even Spielberg went off to go and do Hook during that time period, right?
And it does all kind of merge together in my head, because I didn't work on Hook, but I knew people who did, obviously, in the art department. And I went to visit the Hook, the giant soundstage where they were shooting the ship.
Oh, wow.
It was at Sony. So that was my first time visiting Sony, was just to go visit them on Hook. So yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, that must have been an incredible set to see, the big ship set, right? So that's
the whole stage. God. You could just walk around. It was like, on various heights of platforms, and you would just kind of walk around these gangplanks and up into this area and down into this area, and ropes. And I just remember ropes and craziness.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, did you ever get to visit the Jurassic sets?
All the time. Because I was such a brat, I wasn't really interested in the job I was supposed to be doing, which I really didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. But I was the art film coordinator. I ended up doing a lot of research, as well as being sort of the general sort of dog's body for the art department, and my desk was right by the door at Amblin. So I used to see people coming and going all the time. Really, like George Lucas would just stroll past my desk, and I met Bruce Dern. I met Laura Dern came in one day, and I was chatting with Bruce Dern. It's like, oh, all right, this is kind of fun. So in between all my, the work I was supposed to be doing, I would go to stage, because I would have to go to stage and deliver stuff, deliver documents and things, or go send a message to somebody. So I would end up on stage a lot. So I did see I was there for a lot of the shooting, on and off at Warner Brothers and Universal. So it was really quite something. I saw the big Stan Winston T-Rex. I was friends with the Stan Winston guys, so I used to go to Stan Winston's studio and hang out there. They were good friends of mine. So I saw a lot of those dinosaurs being worked on, being figured out, and all the robots, and it was great. It's really cool.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Were you ever there to actually see the scenes actually being shot, or were you just kind of like shoot away, like, no, you can't
No,
be here for
no. I mean,
this?
I think it's all changed now. That's the shame of it. I think, especially now with all the COVID protocols, being on set is a whole different thing. But I was, everyone. I kind of knew everybody. I was really wanted to meet everyone, so I kind of knew a lot of the different crew members. And I would just, look over their shoulder, whether it's the sound guy or the video guy or the gaffers. I mean, I sort of knew all of them. I don't know how it happened, but I did, and because we all did Death Becomes Her and we all did Jurassic Park, and they were all kind of all over the place doing it. They were all there doing Casper at the same time, and as the Flintstones. So it's like this kind of big, big small world of people. So yeah, I was watching. I remember distinctly the scene where it's raining and it's dark, and who's the bad guy who stole the samples? He was
Oh, Dennis Nedry.
Yeah, he was standing on the edge, and that whole thing where he's like near. There was a whole thing on the cliff face. I just remember the cliff and the car and a dinosaur, and it kind of does. It was a long time ago.
Did you ever do any like artwork yourself for the production, or were you more just like assisting with the other artists?
I wasn't sort of Rick again, because he's just such a good guy. He asked me to do a few little things here and there because I wasn't in the union. I couldn't do any drawing, and I'd had no at that time. I was not a set designer. I had no skills on set designing, but I did make a few little sort of models of like areas with dinosaurs to help, just concept models, and of rocky scenes with clay, but nothing, it wasn't my job or my position to do anything for the movie official. So
Oh, I see. That makes sense. Yeah.
a lot of research, and this is obviously before internet existed, at least on the consumer level like that, like for us. So I had to call up, and I hate the telephone. I really don't like being on the phone, but anyway, I would have to call up people from, like, I went to Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and I went to Caltech, and I had to call someone. Didn't know who to call, and maybe I'd been given a name or somebody to contact. So I would just have to cold call these people and ask them if they would let me come over and take photos. So I went to JPL and asked, because I was asked to find out if there was anywhere like a robotic arm. And this must have been for the lab with the eggs, right? They had robotic stuff going on. So I was asked to research what those, and if there are any out there in the real world, and could you please go to get some get some research on them. So, and there weren't that many books around, and I would look at all the research libraries and go to libraries and do what I could do. And then I was like, okay, I'm just going to go and find out what's out there for myself. So I went to JPL, and then Caltech was to look at all the supercomputers there. They had a lab full of the ginormous computers that they wanted to see what they looked like. I took photos of their lab and computer lab, and all those little things, all those details that all the set designers have to sort of use to help them design the look of the movie and what's going to go in.
And that's really important stuff, because I mean, especially when they're trying to create a very realistic looking park, to have all the animatronics, like I said, like in the lab sequences, to actually look like it's something that could exist. So it's not just fanciful. So you actually helped make that be more realistic movie. So that's really cool.
I forgot, I went down to San Diego to the zoo or the wildlife park, one of the two, and I took photos of that because it was the one that is more natural surroundings. There's like the one that's a bit more typical zoo like, and then there's the one that's more natural. And so I went down to that one, and I took photos of that, and went up on the gondola, and took photos of the enclosures and all that stuff, and brought all that back too. So that was my little fun day out, I guess.
Oh, that's really cool though. I mean, it's almost like you're on your own little safari of your own, taking photographs of everything. So it's pretty fun.
It was really super cool. It was really good. It was like very intense sort of research based work I was doing for a while, just trying to help everybody.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, did you ever go into Universal Studios Hollywood, the theme park itself, to use that as reference for like rides or anything?
You know, I don't know if we did. I mean, for everybody, it was just up the hill, so it could anybody could go there at any time to go look. So I'm pretty sure some of the art department staff had probably even worked on some of those theme park rides themselves as designers. So it was something, it was, you know, it was unnecessary for me to go up there, because it was just up the hill.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I mean, I know they once contacted Bob Gurr, who did the, confrontation, like the animatronic King Kong that used to be at the park, before the fire burned it down. Because I know he was, I guess, at least approached to work on Jurassic Park, but ended up, being Stan Winston instead. So yeah, I'm sure they had some intel with, someone like him for maybe some of those kind of details too. So that's pretty cool. And I remember you sent pictures to me when I was talking to your husband, Seamus Blackley. You're in the little Amblin golf cart and everything.
Right,
So like you're just
right.
kind of on the move, right? So that's great.
Yeah, no, it was great. I had a friend visit from England, one of my oldest friends. He was visiting LA for a holiday. And I said, oh, he said, oh, I'm going to come to Universal and, do the tour. I said, well, I'll come and pick you up at the gate. So I rolled up in the Amblin golf cart, and his jaw nearly touched the ground. It's like, hi.
So he got his own like VIP tour from you. That's pretty cool.
That's right. They had a couple of like beige Jeeps for staff crew to use. And so at the weekends when everyone go home, we could borrow them. So a couple of weekends I signed out at one of their Jeeps and was driving around. Crazy.
No, that's great. I can only imagine like to have that kind of freedom on such a, prestigious place, especially at the time. I mean, you were working there during like the golden years of that studio, really, where everything was happening.
Yeah, well, yeah, one of them. I mean, yes, it was definitely a special time. It's definitely a special time, especially with Amblin in that whole I look back and I think, oh my God, I was so lucky. I was so lucky to be there. And it was it just doesn't exist anymore. It just doesn't exist, that kind of system, the camaraderie and all the groups of people who would just work together all the time, because everything's just so spread out now. So
yeah, like filming in like parts of Canada, Georgia, the UK, so it's like everywhere they're just trying to I guess nickel and dime, like, oh, where's the cheapest place at the moment that we can go to,
right
in that scene. So that is sad, but
yeah,
again, at least you were able to experience, the better time.
Yeah.
During the production of Jurassic Park, they do a lot of preliminary tests to, kind of figure out what the sequence is going to be like before they even film it. And one of those sequences that I know the production spent a lot of time on was the raptors in the kitchen sequence, which is very complex. I found this test footage where you were playing Lex Murphy, the little girl, and art director John Bell was playing Tim Murphy.
Right.
And then some other people were playing the raptors. And it's this very, crudely shot, but very effective test of what that sequence could be like. And it had a lot of interesting ideas that didn't even make it into the final cut, but other things that did.
Right.
So how did that all come about? Like, what was it like to film that?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess me and John got volunteered to do it. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do it. That sounds fun. But yeah, they had to spend a little bit of time collecting all those boxes. So they had to get appliance boxes, all the cardboard boxes, and they sort of filled the stage with them. And so one day, I just went down there with John, and as he was the art director, so he was involved with it. I was just kind of tagging along. Dennis Muren was the DP and from ILM, and Stan Winston was the director.
Really?
Yeah. So I had Stan Winston and Dennis Muren, these titans of the business, directing us on this little shoot. And they had two guys from Stan Winston Studios were dressed in the raptor. Well, they had maybe that one raptor suit guy, and I can't remember his name, but I remember his face. So he was one of the raptors, and I think they had maybe like a two-dimensional stand-up one that they would kind of like jig along.
Yeah, like a cardboard cutout kind of
Right,
thing.
yeah. So so we had to crawl along the floor in various shots, and I mean they followed it fairly closely in the movie. I was there when they were like figuring out the mirror, when the raptor flies into the mirror, or the shiny stainless steel
metallic surface. Yeah,
something reflective. They all figured it out there, and I was sort of blocking mechanism to help them figure it all out. So,
well, and it was
like,
helpful, I can imagine, because I mean, storyboards can only do so much, which is why they do, I guess what they still call animatics today, where they have either like a CGI model usually these days, kind of figuring it out. But they didn't have that back then. So, they had things like test reels, like what you guys
they
did.
had video. They had and I think I have a copy of one, because when we all shut down, all this stuff was kind of left over in the art department, and it was just going to get thrown out. So I kept some of it, and I have a binder of shots of some preliminary storyboards I did of just videoing, like just models, like little models, and a little car turned over for the T-Rex scene. So I have a lot of storyboards, and then interspersed with Illustrator storyboards, like from Dave Lowry's work. So it's kind of this mishmash of just, they had books and books of these things, just and they had little screenshots of like little video shots that were part of these storyboards. So it was all this, obviously very, very highly sort of studied scenes, because they had all this, they had to somehow merge. And thinking back, because I didn't really understand at the time, they had to merge the physical Stan Winston stuff with the digital ILM stuff. They were hoping for more Stan Winston stuff than ILM stuff, and then it ended up being more ILM stuff than Stan Winston stuff. Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Well, I mean, I guess that's a way for them to have like a cost-cutting measure to test these things out and to make those determinations of what is going to be done by what, so they don't have to waste their money as much as possible.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it is pretty cool how like close the Raptors scene was when you played it out. The big difference was at the very end, where in your test version, there's a guy that comes into the kitchen,
yes,
and he has like some knife, or grabs some knives, and then he fights the raptors. I'm like, oh, that's not in the movie.
Yeah, that was one of the set designers, John Berger, that was his role that day. And doesn't he like to have a tray, and he drops the tray, and he he has to look surprised, and then he's laughing. But yes, that didn't make it into the movie.
Yeah, that was such a mystery to me. I'm like, who is that supposed to be? Because I even checked the scripts, and like that never happens in any of this.
For some reason, my brain is telling me it was meant to be a cook, a chef.
Yeah, that makes sense, because like it can't be Grant, right? Like Alan Grant.
No, it wasn't. He was meant to be just a chef, like the resort chef, I think.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, he coming in to like take his knives and go to the kitchen or whatever, and comes across this horrendous scene with raptors chasing you.
But at least he inadvertently saved your life.
Killed him, didn't they?
Yeah, they do. And that's when you guys escape. It's like, oh, he's eating him. We can run.
They took him out. Oh, yes. It wasn't PG enough.
I guess not. But I mean, the novel is pretty rated R, so I'm like, well, it kind of fits in that, that world at least.
Right. Yeah, maybe it was just like, yeah, we don't need that bit. They just get out.
That's why I like reading the scripts too, and seeing the storyboards to see like, okay, like this is what it could have been. Like these are the ideas that kind of went through it.
Right. Oh, I saved all my scripts, and it was all the different colors, the different, the revisions. And I had a binder of them, and I gave it to my roommate at the time.
Wow.
I gave it to him, but I'm still friends with him, although I rarely speak to him, but I'm still friends with him, and we keep in touch. And I know he's a film director himself and a film buff, and that's why I gave it to him at the time. So I'm pretty certain, but I don't want to ask him, because I don't want him to think, well, I want it back, because I did give it to him in good faith. So I'm assuming, I like to think, and maybe I'll ask him one day, if he still has it, but I like to think he still treasures it, because I think he probably would.
Oh yeah, especially he's involved in film and stuff. It's not like you just gave it to some guy that works at a restaurant or
Right,
something.
that's
Oh,
right.
here you go. Yeah, someone
Yeah,
that
so I have
gonna know.
somewhere out there, hopefully, is my copy of the whole script and all its, revisions sitting in someone's shelf somewhere.
I know you directly had an impact on a funny joke that's in the movie. I know you talked about this before, when we talked to your husband, but yeah, so if you want to tell the story again, just for fun.
Well, yeah. It was my dad, and he actually still has the original fax copy of the fax. I guess he had the foresight to remember to keep it, but he sent me a joke. He faxed me a joke in the art department, and that he had heard. It was like a dad joke. And what do you call I never remember the joke. What do you call
A blind
a
dinosaur.
blind dinosaur? What do you call a blind dinosaur's dog? And I was like, oh, that's great. So I probably got the fax at work, because he would have sent it because I didn't have a fax machine. He probably sent it to the art department, and I was reading out this fax, this joke. And to my right in the art department was Paul Sonsky, amazing set designer. And I told him the joke, and he thought, oh, that's good. And you should tell Stephen. I went, oh, really? He said, yeah, you should tell Stephen. And I think probably Stephen was like there that day. So he and because my desk was right by the door to the art department, so one day, that day or that afternoon, Stephen, came through and walked in front of me, or as he was leaving, and I said, oh, hi, because I knew him at that point. I said, hi, I have a joke. He said, oh, okay. So I told him the joke, and he said, do you mind if I write that down and maybe I'll put it in the movie? I said, okay. So there it was. He's a good guy.
No, that's amazing. That was, something he actually considered. Like, that's, I guess, the kind of director he is, where he'll consider any good idea that comes into.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. And that's a very memorable joke in the movie. Like, people always reference it all the time that are fans of Jurassic Park.
Right,
So
right.
fantastic.
Yeah. It's just one of those weird things. Just sort of, hey, I have a joke. My dad sent it. My dad told me a joke. It's literally a dad joke. Literally a dad joke.
So we could all thank your dad for the dad joke.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because I know you guys have like a framed copy of the David Kep script page where the joke is in it. So
that's the one. That's the one part of the script I kept.
There is a scene in Jurassic Park, the movie, after the characters visit the raptor pen, and they go into the visitor center to have lunch. And they're all talking in this darkened room where there's these projectors projecting different stills on, the background behind them to give it some extra visual flair, of course. So it's not just a conversation. And there's at one point, just like one shot in the movie, and you can't really see it too well in like the cropped widescreen versions, but if one finds like an open matte version, they could see it clear. There's a picture of John Bell and you together.
Yes.
So what's the story behind that picture?
For some reason, they gave the job to me. I wasn't in charge of it. We found someone else from the outside to kind of be the sort of production designer of that specific scene, the art director, as it were. And her name was Patty Podesta. And I knew her because she was also a teacher at an art center where I studied. But she was also in the film business. So she was brought on. We brought her on to sort of take charge of that scene because she had a lot of experience at the time. Mostly probably because of the work she did at Art Center with projectors and slides and how it all works within with the photographer and the DP and the cinematography and the lighting and all that stuff. So she had a handle on all that stuff. So, and I was basically working for her, helping her put all that together. And so the reason John and I are in that is because we were just trying to find lots of imagery and create lots of imagery for those slides. So there's a picture of a before and after. We posed in front of a wall, at Amblin, and John's holding his tie up like this. And it was just a normal kind of blue tie. And I'm just sitting there with like holding a white mug. And then we photoshopped the DNA strand onto the tie and the Jurassic Park logo onto my mug and added a background. And there was that photo. So it was a homemade job, and a lot of, as another art center friend of mine who was who came on and helped accumulate do a lot of the sort of graphics Photoshop stuff for those slides. Because I was there on working full-time at Amblin, I had to sort of arrange for the stage space and all the equipment and have all the duvetine hung around and all that stuff. So there was a funny story that I remember the other day. So I again, because I was clueless, I knew that we had to do a test, and that we had to get some duvetine hung all around the stage and get some projector in there and stuff. So I called the grips at the grip department at Universal, and I ordered all this sort of equipment to roll in, for this test of ours. And like the next day, I got this call from our UPM, Lata Ryan, chewing me out for like, what did you do? Why did the stuff costs money, and I just thought you just ordered it and it came, and that it was all part of the same system. I didn't understand there were different productions and you had to have a purchase order and deal with it in that way. I messed up a little bit with that, but everything was fine. So but I forgot I did that. Anyway, it all worked out. We had to get all these the projectors and all the screens and have all that put up and run this show. Patty did an amazing job, and it was cool. So at the end of the day, Stephen was so happy with it that he stopped the crew and said, I just want everyone to give some thanks to these fine people who put this slideshow together. Everyone, a little round of applause. It's like,
oh, that's great.
And then Jeff Goldman piped up and he said, well, what about the actors?
That's on brand with him.
I know. I was like, for years I thought, what an arse, but then now knowing Jeff Goldblum, that's the kind of thing he would say in jest.
Oh yeah,
Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
So what about the actors?
But I mean, to be fair, his brand of humor wasn't well known till after the movie came out.
Correct.
So there you go.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can understand why you'd be a little upset.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was good. We were at Universal when the crew was in Kauai, and there was a big storm, the big hurricane. So that was a bit touch and go because we didn't know how there was no communication for a while because all the communications were down. So yeah, that was a huge thing for all them to deal with. They were all sort of holed up in a hotel, waiting for this, hoping that they weren't going to get sort of blown away.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're on the other end of that, to be worried, what the hell's happening down there? Is everyone okay? Having that kind of concern and worry. Yeah, that's
right.
Wow.
Not to mention, I mean, obviously I wasn't there, so I don't have a visual memory of what damage happened, but there must have been some significant damage to the construction, what they were building. So it may have delayed stuff. I don't know. Probably did.
Yeah, from my understanding, they only had 1 day left of filming, and they just ended up scrapping that day. And I guess they had enough of what they needed, or they maybe cut out partially a scene. Some people claim that there was supposed to be a scene where you actually see Samuel Jackson's character get ripped apart by the raptor.
Right.
So that was something that they thought might have gotten cut. But
yeah,
no one really knows for sure. One of the pictures that you sent me before that had looks like a dummy of someone, looks like Donald Gennaro, the lawyer that gets ripped apart by the T-Rex in the movie. So what's the story behind this mannequin stand-in, I guess? We had that sitting around the art department for ages.
I think they had used it when he's sitting on the toilet and the T-Rex comes and picks him up and chomps on him. So that was from that particular scene. And so I think they must have used it as a stand-in for when this ginormous animatronic dinosaur made by Stan Winston's guys came there. They wouldn't want the real guy because that thing was huge. So yeah, so that was there in his full it's coming to get me.
No, I don't think anyone really knew that something like that existed because in the final movie, it's a CGI T-Rex ends up grabbing him and taking him off the toilet. So do you know if they ever filmed it with the animatronic first to see if that would work?
I'm assuming that I don't know. I'm assuming they must have either planned on doing it, given it a go, I don't know. Someone on actually, you know, more qualified than myself would be able to tell you that. But
Oh, that's okay.
I'm assuming it was a plan to use it at some point. They made this full size, you know, exact copy of the actor, and it was very rubbery. I remember that.
Yeah, I think that's why I was like so interested in it, because I'm like, it's not just like a generic dummy kind of thing. Like, it does look just like him.
Yeah, it was definitely modeled off him. It was probably made by I don't know, maybe the Stan Winston people may have taken a cast of his face or modeled it from him.
I'm sure you guys played around with it all the time, like, oh, here's this dead guy in the office.
Right,
You know?
yes.
Throw him around.
Yeah, he's looking a bit concerned, you know. Should someone help him? Amazing things was just to kind of see all this stuff as it was evolving. They had like a screening for Amblin crew people one day in the Amblin screening room of the first sort of official dinosaurs. So that they had the big Brontosaurus walking across the screen, and we were all sitting down waiting, like, what's this going to be like? And then you could see the audible sort of wonderment of everybody as these dinosaurs walked across the screen in this fairly small screening room at Amblin. It was amazing to be there, it's like it was a little piece of history right there for for CGI nerds, I guess. You
were there to see the first moments. Like, that is really special.
It was amazing. Yeah, I was they would always have dailies every day, obviously, when they were shooting, and I would often pop in because they would have them in the Amblin screening room, and I would just sneak in and have a look and watch the dailies and see what it was looking like as they were shooting. So I was very fortunate.
So what other films did you work on during or even after the time of Jurassic Park for like Amblin and Universal?
Well, as I said, it was we did Jurassic Park, followed by Death Becomes Her, followed by Jurassic Park. And then after that, Rick went off to do Forrest Gump, I believe. And I stayed, he foisted me back onto Bill Sandell, who came in to do the Flintstones. So I basically stayed put at Amblin. And then we did, however long that was, another long run. So that was cool because I got to see, all those Flintstone props and all the sets being created. Every single thing had to be built. Every piece of set dressing, every car, everything. So that was a big project.
Oh yeah, I mean, for ages, because I've gone to Universal Studios many times, to the park, and they used to have like the sets or like props and some of the vehicles of Flintstones like on the studio tour after the movie came out, and it was so great to see like how much detail that they had and everything. The rock motifs, so cool.
yeah, it was a huge amount of people had to come on board for that. Just as far as all the sets.
Oh, that's great. Did you sneak in any Jurassic Park references in the Flintstones, or like, did anyone sneak any like Jurassic references since it was closely related?
Probably subconsciously more than anything. I mean, there was a dinosaur in the Flintstones, the pet dinosaur, Dido. Everyone's all part of the same kind of like, okay, here we go. And you probably can't help but include some of it just because it's in your head. By the end of the Flintstones, I realized I couldn't or didn't want to be an art department coordinator anymore. I really wasn't cut out to be an art department coordinator. And so I started taking set design lessons. And so by the time the Flintstones finished, I was already starting to learn to draft and try to sort of, change course a bit.
Well, I mean, it's a good place to learn, who you are. Like, what better place than, in that studio?
It was a good place to realize that you're not as important as you think you are when you come out of college, especially Art Center College of Design, where you graduate thinking you're something special, and then you get out there and it's like, oh, okay, all right, I've got a little, sort of start down, take myself down a few notches, and but it was an amazing, without even realizing it, I was learning a lot about the business that I had no idea about. I didn't know what I didn't know. And so,
well, I can imagine it being like a humbling experience and just kind of the sometimes harsh realities of what a job really is, right? I mean, I think a lot of people could, relate to that with other fields of work too, where it's like, this isn't what I expected. Like,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely that. It was definitely very humbling. And again, I was so lucky. I was so lucky.
What are some recent films that you've worked on?
Last year I worked on the Zack Snyder's new film that's in post-production now, Rebel Moon. So it
Oh,
was
wow.
interesting what that looks like. That was huge. That was a huge endeavor with lots of sets. So but now that I've been working from home basically since COVID, I don't really see the day-to-day comings and goings anymore, which is a shame, because it's like you're kind of stuck in your own little world. You can look onto the server if there's like a Dropbox or a server that they're storing everybody's work, and you can kind of, if you have a time, you can kind of browse through and see what everyone else is up to, get some idea of what's going on and context and all that stuff. So
Yeah, it's a shame that it kind of boxes you in more, literally. And I'm sure you do a lot of Zoom calls like this just to get the movie made, right?
that's right. Yes, that's right.
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it would be. How it must be a very different experience for people coming into the business now, especially young kids who want to just have, meeting everybody from all the different departments. And now it's so much more, everything's so organized into whatever what color your badge is. If you're a red, you can go everywhere, but only a few people can go everywhere, because that's the actors, and they're vulnerable because they don't wear masks. So whatever, it's got to be very difficult, different for the people trying to get in and trying to learn the ropes and meet people. So
Yeah, I mean, that makes you even more lucky that, you came in at a time where it wasn't crazy like this right now, able to enjoy it more.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would sit at my desk, and we had John Williams was in the next bungalow. So we'd see him kind of wandering around. And then the editor, the famous editor, is it Michael Kahn? He was editing like in a couple bungalows away. And so I kind of, for some reason, I had to go in and look over his shoulder one day at something. Maybe it was to do with a slideshow, or make notes about something. So, it was all this kind of little world that you could kind of see and learn and meet and all sorts of things. So, and then because it was Amblin, you'd see all sorts of people coming and going. We weren't the main Amblin building, we were like the bungalows next door, but I would go into the main building quite a lot, usually to go to the kitchen to get some bagels. One day I saw Antonio Banderas. Nobody knew who he was, really, but I watched some of his Almodovar movies, and so I knew who he was. And he was this young kid with his he looked very European. He had his little denim, I think he had his light denim jeans and his light denim jacket and a little European rucksack, and he was waiting in the lobby to have some meeting.
Oh, that's great. Do you remember what else was filming at the same time as Jurassic Park on the lot?
No, I actually can't.
You were that focused. That's good. That's good.
Well, I just remember this. So we had all these big stages, and everything else was like, probably there was some TV shows, like maybe it was the one with Angela Lansbury, was Murder, She Wrote or something. I don't know. Because we'd taken over all these giant stages, everything else just seemed to sort of unimportant by our standards, right? It's terrible to say.
No, but you all knew what you were working on. Just like Rick said, he's like, this is gonna be a big movie, so everything out of the way.
Right,
big way for us.
Yeah, bring the giant bulldozer in, and we'll just
Okay, so I have to ask, because Seamus Blackley, who, for those not in the know, he created the Xbox and also created the legendary Jurassic Park game Trespasser, which we all love here, so it's great. So how did you meet Seamus Blackley? Like, how did that happen?
We met at a coffee shop. We first met at Intelligentsia, and very hipster coffee shop. And he just we just really hit it off. We really hit it off, and had suddenly realized we had all these kinds of we'd never met, but we had all these things in common. And when we were first dating, I had an old friend of mine who I was visiting, who lived in Venice, an old friend from college called Jared, and I was visiting his house in Venice, and I was sitting in the front yard talking to Seamus on the phone, and I said, "Yeah, I'm at my friend Jared's house." And Seamus used to live in Venice at some point, so I said, "Oh, didn't you used to live in Venice?" He said, "Yeah, I lived on, whatever the street was." I went, "Oh yeah, I'm on that street. I gave him the number and the cross street." He said, "What? Is that the house with the with the fluorescent light in the bathroom with the on the wall, the fluorescent wall?" I went, "Yes." So it just turned out that my friend Jared is living in the house, renting the house from the same house that Seamus had lived in, a decade or so before. And just weird little coincidences.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I mean, it's possible that he was working at DreamWorks while I was at Amblin. It's possible. Haven't quite nailed down the dates. But I remember when I was at Amblin was when, towards the end of my time, was when they started forming DreamWorks, and they had this other building that we all heard about. This other building, this place called DreamWorks, and it's possible that Seamus was there at the same time, and we may have crossed paths without realizing. But yeah, lots of weird little coincidences.
Yeah, that might have been during the time that he was working on Trespasser, which was a very early DreamWorks game. So it's funny that you guys have that Jurassic connection in a way too. So that's so cool.
Yeah. I know he's got his dinosaur collection, and I got mine.
Exactly.
But it's like, wait a minute.
No, exactly. No, you guys are great.
It was a really good learning experience just to find out all the different positions of the art department, and I certainly did find out, just because I was also liked everybody and they were so talented, and just watching these illustrators just create these amazing, with a pencil and graphite and creating these amazing drawings, diligently work on them on their desks all day. David Lowery doing his storyboards. I mean, he's the best storyboard artist I think I've ever seen.
Oh, he's so good. Yeah, he's great.
And he's so funny, and we would have a lot of fun. We would have a lot of fun. So
yeah, he seems like he'd be pretty rambunctious to work with, like his style of humor and his energy. So I'm sure you guys had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for doing this, and long time coming. I'm very glad we made this happen.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Caroline Quinn's work on Jurassic Park helped shape the film into the classic it is today. Her entertaining recollections brought us back to that special time at Amblin Entertainment where dreams became reality. While her career blossomed into set design on many other incredible productions, her participation on Jurassic Park will always be greatly remembered. After 30 years, the film remains an incredible experience, thanks to the team of creative geniuses that brought to life an adventure 65 million years in the making. If you'd like to learn more about the untold stories of Jurassic Park, please visit Jurassic Time, featuring John Hammond's memoir program, Rick Carter's illustrated audio drama, and much more. This has been Derek Davis.